Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm here to chat about the Goodreads Choice Awards for the romance category for 2024. Alright, so I wasn't planning on doing this video, but then I realized I've kind of talked about it for the last 2 years on my channel, so I figured I gotta just like keep that up, and I like having things that I've done multiple years of, so I figured like why not, let's get into this one. So I'm just gonna quickly pull it up. It just released this week. I actually didn't even realize it released. I found out in a text convo with friends that it was out, and I was like, oh yeah, that does usually come out in like mid-November. That makes sense. So let's get into these. I'm pulling it up on my phone right now. I have already looked at them. I looked at most of the categories because usually I've read books in multiple categories, and I just like to see what's happening, what's out there. I know we all have thoughts on the Goodreads Choice Awards and kind of the books that they pick and the authors that they pick. I feel like we all know it's a popularity contest of the books that are most shelved and the ones that are really popular that marketing and publishing put a lot of money behind. And so it's no surprise that a lot of like popular ones you see if you go into a bookstore are going to be on this one as well. So let's just get into these. I think they have, is it 10 on the nominations the first round, or is it 20? Maybe it's 20 actually, and then maybe the next round is 10. I think that's the case. So let's get into the romance ones. All right, so these are in no particular order. I think they randomize it every time you look at the list. So for right now, the first one on my list is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I did read this one. I'm in the camp of I didn't love this book. I actually hated this book. I think I gave it 2 stars at the beginning of the year. It was just like a major miss for me. But I know that this book has mixed reviews, and I know tons of friends who love this book and is one of their favorites. So like I'm totally glad that it worked for them. Just for me, it didn't. This one basically is a vampire heroine, werewolf, wolf shifter hero. I love paranormal romances and have read better. So this one was a disappointment for me, but it is on this list. I'm surprised it's on the romance list instead of the romantasy, but maybe they didn't qualify paranormal over there. I have no idea. But then there are paranormal ones on that list, so I have no idea why they put it on this list. But anyways, that's that one. The next one on my list is another Ali Hazelwood, because why not give her all the books on the list instead of, you know, featuring other books, other authors that had books published this year as well? I don't know. Anyways, this is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This one I actually didn't like either. I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was very like mid for me. And this is not me trying to be rude about Ali Hazelwood books, but these two in particular are probably my least favorites from her. I've read all of her books, all of her novellas. There are some that I love. There are some of her books I've given 5 stars, just neither of these last two. So it seems like I'm being a hater on her books. I'm totally not. They just didn't work for me. This one in particular though, I will say it feels very different than the rest of her books, and it just didn't work for me. So I don't know, 3 stars for that one. Not one of my favorites of the year. Another one I didn't love actually is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. This is an romance, so I'm glad that we have a kind of queer representation on the list, but this book was actually a major miss for me. I've loved Casey McQuiston's books in the past, and this one was just not my favorite either, so we're not like on a great start here. So I also feel like this one wasn't widely popular either this year. I haven't seen a ton of people talk about it. I know there was a whole like mix up with PR boxes being sent out, and that was a whole like controversy situation of that conversation. So maybe that's why it's on here. I don't know, because it was talked about, but like I feel like it wasn't popular as some of the rest of these on this list. But anyways, let's keep it going. So next up we have Leather and Lark by Bren Weaver. I did read this one. I think I gave it 3.5/4 stars. I read both books in this trilogy by Bren Weaver. The first one was Butcher and Blackbird, and they're both fine for me. And so these are dark romance with kind of dark humor as well, and they were fine for me. I've read other Bren Weaver books, actually her indie dark romances that I loved more, which was Black Sheep and Marrow. Both of those are so good if you want dark romance without the like dark humor kind of rom-com levels. Those two are really, really good. So anyways, so Leather and Lark, it's fine. I feel like this is very mainstream, so I'm not surprised it's on here. I know it has a lot of reviews and a lot of ratings of people who have read it, so like I get why it's on here, but it's just not one of my favorites. Okay, I'm laughing because I swear I'm saying that about all of these first ones on the list for me. So next up is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. This is another one that I did not love. Did I also give this one 2 stars too? I think I did, 2 or 3 stars too. I read an arc of this one and I was really sad I didn't love it because I have read the majority of this author's backlist, if not all of her books. And so this one was just like a miss for me, one of my least favorites from her, which I was really bummed out. This author in particular, her books definitely lean more towards women's fiction with romances in there. They work for me usually. This one in particular just didn't work for me. So not surprised it's on the list, but also just like my least favorite from her. Now we're getting into some books that I love because I swear I do love romances. Next one is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This one I actually loved. This is an author duo that I've read majority of their backlist. I definitely still prefer their older like indie published stuff that was just more like spicy and just went there and was just like so much fun, very much like indie romances. And I feel like with their more traditionally published books that have been put out recently, they're more like hit and miss for me. And this one was actually a hit. I really, really loved this one. And this one I gave, I think 4 or 4.5 stars to. Highly recommend. It has like this fake relationship setup where basically the hero and the heroine, they got married for reasons back when she needed like a housing situation in college. And so they only got married on paper, literally never lived together, never hung out. They don't even know one another. And she assumed they got a divorce at one point. And then we find out years later, they're actually not divorced. And he comes to her because he's like, hey, my sister and my entire family, we're having this wedding. But anyways, they're having this wedding kind of getaway for his sister. And his family's like, hey, your wife, you should bring her, because this entire time he's been pretending that they're like happily married and telling his family kind of like stories about them. So they assume they're married still. And so he has to come to the heroine and be like, hey, can you like fake be married, but also we're like really married on paper still to my sister's wedding. It's really, really so good. I promise you, if you haven't liked some of their newer stuff, please pick this one up because it is so, so good. All right, and then next up we have one from Kennedy Ryan, which I'm very excited to see her on this list because I love Kennedy Ryan's books. So this one is This Could Be Us. This is the second book in her Skyland series. I am still heartbroken that Before I Let Go didn't make the list in the previous year or two. I think it came out just like a day or two before the cutoff deadline for one of the years, so it didn't make it. And then of course it didn't make it the following year as well, which I feel like was such a shame because that book is top tier, so good, such an amazing book. I love it so much. So This Could Be Us is okay for me. I gave this one actually 3.5/4 stars, which is probably one of the lowest I've ever rated any of Kennedy Ryan's books. Her books usually hit for me so well. This one I feel like the book is good, but I feel like it definitely toes the line more of women's fiction with a romance subplot in there. And I just was like kind of sold and marketed that this was more of a romance. And I feel like that if the marketing would have said this is women's fiction with romance in it, I would have been totally fine. It probably would have changed my perspective on the book because I read plenty of other genres without romances. And like, I just feel like it's the marketing aspect. Like if you tell me this is going to be a romance, then I want that front and center the entire story. And this one just wasn't that. So like I had conflicted feelings on this one. Like I wanted a little bit more. So yeah, this one, it was okay for me, 3.5/4 stars. And I'm glad to see it on the list because like I said, I love Kennedy Ryan's books in general. All right. And the next one is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This one I read, I had an arc of this one and really enjoyed it. This one though is more magical realism, kind of historical fiction, blended with romance. So I feel like going into this one thinking it's just romance, like you definitely have to set your expectations for it. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It's very much more kind of like moody and like I said, historical fiction with that magical realism, kind of like soulmates vibe to it. Really, really good. I did like 7 Days in June by this author better a couple years ago, but this one is a good one as well and I'm glad to see it on the list. All right, and then we have This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. And this is her newest release. I think this author has made it for the last 3 years with all of her releases. This one I didn't read because I stopped reading this author after reading her previous 2 books. I didn't love those. Those are definitely more women's fiction with like a side plot of romance, which if you can't tell is not my favorite thing to read. So I just don't think this author's for me and I don't need to keep picking up her books and just giving them 3 stars. So yeah, I didn't read this one and I don't plan to read this one. All right, and then we have Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. I actually really enjoyed this one. I really like this author's series, which is the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Her newest one, Lost in Lasso, just came out and I really enjoyed that one as well. All the books in the series I've given 4 stars to. This is actually book 2, which came out earlier in the year. Lost in Lasso just came out this month. I loved both of them. So, so good. I feel like the series is just getting better and better. This one in particular has like opposites attract, city girl and country boy. This very like Western setting. I really liked this one. I feel like she does really good like mental health rep in her books as well and just like openly talks about therapy and different like conversations around that, which I really like to see in romances. So yeah, I really like this one and I'm glad to see it on the list. Next is How to End a Love Story. This one I actually don't plan on reading. I didn't hear the greatest things about this one and I'm kind of surprised it's on the list, but oh no, maybe I'm not because it has like Reese's Book Club sticker on it. So I feel like kind of books like in that vein, Book of the Month books, they're like very widely popular with certain readers. And so I can see why they make the list. This one I just didn't hear the greatest things for, so I don't plan on picking this one up. But like if you loved it, definitely let me know because maybe then I will change my mind. Next one, not surprised to see it, is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I feel like all of her books or most of her books make the list. I've read her entire backlist. This one I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars to. It didn't live up to Yours Truly, which was my favorite from last year from her, one of my favorites of the year. So it didn't live up to that, but I feel like her books are just so strong. They're so good. She's so solid, always hits. I think I've given all of her books like 4 or 5 stars. So yeah, I'm not surprised to see this one on the list. And I love that for her because I know it made so many like top bestseller lists for the year. So yeah, definitely excited if this one is on here. All right, and then next up we have The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. This one I actually still need to read and I'm very excited to get to it. Very excited to see it on this list because I feel like this author has definitely blown up in the past year with like TikTok and just kind of all of those things. Like I always see her books in Barnes & Noble. So I'm very excited and I plan to read this one soon. This is the follow-up to The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which is just kind of like this cozy small town setting. I'm very excited to read the rest of the series including this one. I've heard great things, so I am excited to see it on here. All right, and then we have Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan. This one I have not read, and I do remember seeing that it came out earlier this year. I probably won't get to this one. I have read this author in the past. I read their Crazy Rich Asians trilogy back when it came out years ago before it was being made into a movie, and I feel like they're very entertaining and fun, and so I haven't heard too much about this one. I don't know if it ties into that series or if it's a standalone, so I'm not like against reading this one. I just haven't even heard anything about it. So if you read this one, definitely let me know. All right, and then we have The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. I haven't heard too much about this one at all. Actually, I don't even think I've heard anybody talk about this one. I've seen the cover, and I don't feel like I even know what it's about. But again, I think it has, is it the Good Morning America book club sticker on it? I think that's what it is. So not surprised to see this one. I feel like I have seen the book everywhere at like bookstores. So definitely let me know if you've read this one, because maybe I'll pick this one up as well. All right, and then we have an Elsie Silver. So not surprised to see a book from her on this list, because I feel like she's blowing up all over the place, and I love that. I started reading her books when they're indie published, and I love seeing these favorite indie authors get picked up traditionally and have their books in bookstores, and it's just so exciting. So this one is Wild Love by Elsie Silver, and this one, sadly, I didn't love though. I do love her books overall, but I feel like she is definitely more hit and miss for me. This is the first book in her new Rose Hill series. This is the current series that she's writing and publishing, and this one, it was just kind of like mid for me. I gave this one 3 stars, which I have read her other 2 series. So I've read the Gold Rush Ranch series and the Chestnut Springs series, and both of those are very hit and miss for me as well. I'll have a 3-star and then I'll have a 5-star in the series. So I'm hoping that's the case with this Rose Hill series, and maybe the first one didn't work for me, but the other ones are better. So we'll see, which I have heard from people who didn't love book 1 like me, that they did really love book 2. So I still need to continue on, but yeah, I'm excited to see her on the list regardless if the book worked for me or not. All right, and then another one that I'm not surprised to see on here is Daydream by Hannah Grace. I feel like I see this author's books all the time, especially on TikTok, so I'm not surprised that she's on here. I don't think I've read this author yet. Is this one who did like Icebreaker? I don't think I've read this author, so I don't know. If you love this one, definitely let me know. But it's the 3rd in her Maple Hills series. I know it came out, I think, this summer, and I haven't read it, so definitely let me know. All right, and then we have King of Sloth by Anna Huang. Again, not surprised to see a book from her on this list. This is from her current Kings of Sin series. I've read this whole series, or the 4 books that are out currently. This is book 4. This one I enjoyed. My favorite in the series is still King of Greed, which is book 3. So this one, it was solid. I gave it 4 stars. Not surprised to see her on here. She is blown up as well, always on like New York's bestsellers list and kind of all those huge lists. So very excited to see her on here as well. All right, so now we're down to the last 2 on the list. So we have Play Along by Liz Tomforty. This is the 4th book in her Windy City series, and this one I actually still need to read. So this one I definitely plan to read, especially before I vote, because I want to see what I'm going to vote on. And so this one I definitely want to read and get to. I've just been like putting it off, and I need to get to it already. So this is book 4 in the series, like I said, and this one is a sports romance. I want to say Baseball, Marriage of Convenience. Possibly. I feel like that's the case. Or like they get married in Vegas situation. I do remember that part. So I definitely want to get to this one soon. I know so many people love this one. The series is just so good. The Right Move is still like top tier for me, which I feel like she did make the list for The Right Move a couple years ago as well, which loved that one. So anyways, that is Play Along by Liz Tomforty. And then the last one on the list, which I feel like will be the winner as well, just based off of the amount of ratings, the amount of people who've read this book, and the amount of people who have it shelved, is Funny Story by Emily Henry. And I feel like this book is just so good, so I'm very excited to see it on the list. Not surprised at all. This one I gave 4.5 stars to. I had a really good time with this one. I had an audio ALC of this one, and I still remember listening to it and just like having such a fun time. It was so funny, but so smart, and just like, it was just so good. I feel like her books really hit for me. I love all of her adult romances that have come out in the last 4 to 5 years. Read them all. This one is one of my favorites, so I'm very excited to see it on the list as well. Not surprised, but also very happy for her at the same time. All right, so those are the 20 on the Goodreads Choice Awards for favorite romances of 2024. I have read 13 out of the 20, which there are 2 on here that I plan on reading as well before the end of the year. So we have The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore, and then also Play Along by Liz Tomforty. I might actually get to those sooner than later so I can vote on them. We'll see what I do. But anyways, that's the romance category. I will usually go through the other categories and vote there as well, because I read a variety of genres, and I always just like seeing what makes the other categories, of maybe books I should go check out, or just see other books that I have read and loved. I did like to see that there was an audiobook category this year. I feel like that's new, and that's super exciting because I feel like audiobooks are everything, and like about time they get some appreciation. But yeah, those are all my thoughts on the Goodreads Choice Awards for the romance category. I think there's like a limited time to vote, and then I think the final round will be down to 10 books to then vote on again. Definitely let me know in the comments if there were romance releases that you were surprised didn't make this list this year. If you could have made your own list, which books you would have put on there, which ones you're voting for, let me know that as well. If you want to leave me an emoji in the comments today, leave me the trophy, like the trophy award emoji, because I feel like, you know, awards, we need to go with that. So definitely do that. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I will see you in my next one.